Welcome to Adventures in Education, a program that spotlights positive things happening in the world of education in Southern Oregon and Northern California. I'm John Letz. Today we are focusing on a resource that is just absolutely fantastic for the students in our area when they're studying about Native Americans. And without any further ado, I want to tell you who my guest is today. I introduce Tish McFadden. Tish, welcome to Adventures in Education.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me today. Thank you.
I am so excited about you being here, and I'm so excited about this work you've done. It is absolutely incredible. I became aware of it when you did a program with another producer here at the station, Nancy Bloom.
Yes.
And I saw this, and of course I'm a retired teacher, so my mind still goes to what's good for kids, you know, and for kids to learn. And knowing about this resource, which is called Upriver To Morning.
Correct.
And we can see the logo that's been made for that. And that's only a tiny fragment of all the work that you've done on this program. So Upriver To Morning. And if you could just explain a little bit, what is this about?
Well, thank you. I would love to. Well, it started about 3.5 years ago when Agnes Baker Pilgrim, who was the elder of the Takelma tribe, and the Takelma people lived along the Rogue River for over 15,000 years.
Wow.
Long, continuous culture here. Well, Grandma Aggie just turned 95 on September 11th this last year. She has 4 generations of her ancestors living. She's the 5th of living Takelma people in her family line. And I met her back in the 80s. I came to Southern Oregon as an archaeologist, actually. I worked for the Forest Service, and I was the Federal Cultural Resource Specialist for the Siskiyou National Forest.
So what did that have you do?
Well, that had me looking for sites, prehistoric sites and historic sites, along the Rogue River mostly, but the area that I covered was thousands of square miles. And I was looking for evidence of our prehistoric culture here because the people themselves had been removed in the mid-1850s. The Takelma people were removed to reservations up in northern Oregon. So there were very few Takelma people I could speak to until I met Agnes Baker Pilgrim. So my job was to identify prehistoric sites, village sites, sacred sites, rock writing sites, lithic scatters, stone tool sites, and interpret and protect them. So
Were there a lot of them?
No, actually. My previous job was in southern Utah in a very arid climate where even fiber sandals and artifacts made of plant material would still be preserved. But up here in the Northwest, not so much.
A little too moist.
Very moist. But nonetheless, it was a tremendous opportunity to protect prehistory for our future generations, which is the perfect backdrop for how Upriver To Morning came to be. I met Grandma Aggie again when she did her book signing at Bloomsbury Books, where she was talking about a lot of her teachings and what's important to her and what she wants to ripple out to the next generation, our students, our children coming. And I bought her book and I read her book and I wrote down about 25, I kind of brought up 25 different teachings and that she talked about in her book. And I thought, how are we going to get this out to our next generation? Because not everybody can read her book, and it really wasn't geared for children. So I decided to write a story. And as you might know, that storytelling and music are some of the most basic and profound ways to share information with children, and actually all ages. So it's
this is the book, right, or the cover of the book,
Upriver
To Morning.
this is the book, and that beautiful artwork is by a lovely artist named Laura Winslow, who's the illustrator for the entire project. Yeah, that is the Rogue River right there, and one of the Table Rocks, the heartland of the Takelma people. So it's been full circle, going from archaeology to writing to music to bringing it all together in this one education program.
And you've been working on this, you said, for over 3 years.
Yes, since that very first book signing, March of 2016, and very early days, I got my dear friend and colleague Thomas Doty involved. Thomas and I have actually done work before together. We did some folklore projects at the Northwest Nature Shop, and just known each other for a couple decades at least. And Thomas is worldly renowned as a native storyteller, and because of his knowledge of local culture, it was a perfect partnership. So Thomas has been involved since the very get-go, and since then I've had so many incredible professionals jump on board. Very fortunate, couldn't do it without him.
You were describing that it kind of starts like the river, where the spring, just you getting this started.
Yeah, it's a perfect metaphor. If you picture the length of the Rogue River, about 250 miles from its source at Boundary Springs up by Crater Lake, little trickle, 5 springs coming out of the ground. And when you see the size and the volume of that water as it pours into the Pacific at Gold Beach, that's a bit like this process. So it started as a trickle, which actually was waking up almost from a dream state, thinking I need to do this project after Grandma's book talk. And down the river it has traveled, and along the way I've gathered all kinds of incredible people, professional ideas, great energy, ideas that have taken this so much farther than I would have thought of taking it myself, including now a film series I'm doing with Pete Bedell and Brian Horton, Pilot Rock Productions. They're also the filmmakers at KOBI Television. And we are doing interviews, conversations with Grandma Aggie. This was at the Rogue River Preserve of the Southern Oregon Land Conservancy. Our 3rd film shoot is scheduled for November 24th. That'll be in my music school, the Rum Tum School of Music in Ashland, Oregon. And each one of these has been an incredible chance to hear from Aggie, the source of this Takelma wisdom that we're trying to preserve and perpetuate into next generations. These films are it. She won't be here forever. And to have someone write down her words and then say them to someone in the future is one thing, which in part is what I'm trying to do with my book project and education program. But to hear it from Agnes Baker Pilgrim herself, there is nothing better than that first source, original source information. So I'm very excited about that piece. And those films will be available for school classrooms, of course.
Fantastic. Part of the whole project.
Part of the whole project, as well as the book has been turned into a theater script by Thomas Doty. And so kids will also be able to just either do simply as reader's theater program or a full-blown theatrical production on stage, but tell the story through their own voices. So all the dialogue has been turned into script, and all the narration kind of carries the story through. It's a beautiful adaptation of the book itself. I'm very pleased with it.
And I've seen video of your interview with Grandma Aggie, as she's fondly called.
Yes.
And her spirit comes through so clearly.
It's true, yes. Yeah, she has a love of all creatures, all people. Her heart is open to all living things. And her big, strong love is water. And one of her great passions and desires is to protect the water of the planet, all the waters of the planet. She calls us all water babies because we come from water. And I love that. She has so much to share with such an open heart, and she's very excited about Upriver To Morning because she knows that this is going to help her legacy continue.
Sounds like that ripple she was talking about.
Ripple it out. You know, it's one of her famous lines. She wants to ripple out her wisdom. Yeah. And so I think that really is the inspiration. I know it's the inspiration for Upriver To Morning, to ripple out her teachings, to honor her history and her culture. I mean, 15,000 years in one area. The white settlers have been here only a mere 165, 66 years. A lot of changes happened in a very short time, but but huge balance and sustainability of a culture for 15,000 years.
And
that's something to pay attention to.
And to me, thank heavens, everyone who engages in this is helping to preserve that culture.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
Absolutely. There's just so much there. So what I do appreciate about Agnes Baker Pilgrim so much is her energy and passion to travel the world. You know, she's on the council of the 13 international Indigenous grandmothers. In fact, she was one of the founding grandmothers, and she was the chairwoman of this group. And this is 13 grandmothers from every continent in the world that gather together.
And you got to hold her hand. That's fantastic.
That was actually at one of Grandma Aggie's birthday parties. If I remember correctly, she was turning 94 at that a year ago. Her birthday this year, her 95th, was right along the Rogue River at the property of Stephen Kiesling's, and was as always, a huge and wonderful, exciting event. And she gets to hold court and talk to all the people that she cares about and who care about her. It's a wonderful event.
Now, the story in Upriver To Morning, let's talk about some of the characters that are involved in this.
Oh, I'd love to.
How it goes.
All right, well, so Salmon is the primary character. Salmon is on a journey up the Rogue River from its mouth, from the Pacific Ocean. And he's on a journey for wisdom. So the subtitle of Upriver To Morning is A Journey to Wisdom.
I see.
So Salmon is the one who knows that his ancestors, all the salmon, make this circular path upriver and downriver, upriver to spawn, back down to the Pacific Ocean. And he's ready to make another trek up that river. But this time, his goal is to meet his teacher, who's called Morning Star. And Morning Star is actually a morning star that rises in the sky every morning in the east. So he's swimming upriver to meet Morning Star. Her home is up by Boundary Springs, the source of the Rogue River. And along the way, he's joined by several friends, starting with Coyote. Coyote is actually on the beach with Salmon at the beginning of his trek. And they are loyal friends. You know how loyal canines can be, and also sometimes quite silly, and also sometimes a bit of a trickster, especially in Takelma storytelling. Well, Coyote joins Salmon upriver. Coyote is walking up the trail along the river. Salmon, of course, is swimming upstream. And then they meet Deer Woman. And Deer Woman is there isolated from her herd. And so she, being a herd animal, feels a bit out of place, not being with her herd, who had just migrated a little further, and she must have stayed and chewed on some nice fresh leaves and didn't notice their departure. So Deer Woman joins the group. And then the guardian hawk, the red-tailed hawk, who is flying overhead, she is the guardian of this trip up the river, and she watches in 6 directions, ahead, behind, over her right wing, her left wing, left and right. And red-tailed hawk warns them of anything to be careful of or watchful of, like storms, for example. So she can see much farther than the swimmers, than the ground walkers, or the underground dwellers. So all of these animals are creatures and are people in this story. They're all people, except there's actually no human beings. So
I
up they go.
understand even rocks in this story have a role.
Yes, the rock people are the oldest people there are. So the rock people, the tree people, known as the one-leggeds, the grass people who are carefree and dance in the wind, they meet all of them on their journey. We also go through many different landscapes and ecosystems, starting at the beach, then the low forest, the low elevation forest, then up into the Rogue Valley with the Table Rocks, then up into the gorge area where the river gets thinner and faster, and the rocks and all the boulders up there, and then finally up to the source at Boundary Springs. So I've written a song for every chapter. I'm a songwriter as well as a writer. And each of these songs are associated with each chapter of the book. And some of them talk about the character of that chapter, some of them talk about the landscape. And then the last one talks about passing the words. It's called Pass the Words, of our wise ones on pass the words of our wise ones on. And so those songs will be available and taught to children. And I always think singing about something helps you remember it.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the alphabet song.
Yeah.
Remember, if we all still probably in our heads, A, B, C, D, remembering our alphabet when we need to by singing that song.
Yeah.
So
they first learned there's a strange letter called elemental P.
I said it the same way.
Yeah.
That one letter, elemental P, that long letter. Exactly. So yeah, we can learn a lot through song, and putting words to a melody really sinks it into our heart in a little deeper way. So I like to use songs as a way of teaching.
Now, have you been able to work with any kids or
Oh,
any group
yes.
of people to see how they're responding with this?
I appreciate you asking that, because if I did this in a vacuum, just in my own hopeful imagination of how I do visualize it, which I do have a vision, I have taken it out to second grade classrooms and fourth grade classrooms here in Ashland, Oregon. And I've read the book. I've made 5 visits to read each chapter, 1 visit. And I read aloud and have the kids participating in the story by making sound effects with me, by echoing with me. But they're not just sitting there. Having taught music so long, I like to have my audience be very interactive. So with kids, that works great. They sang all the songs with me, and the teachers, the response I got from the teachers and the kids themselves, who all wrote me little notes afterwards, it worked for them. They were very excited, and they can't wait to have it available in their classrooms. Yeah. So.
And when do you think that might happen?
Well, here's what still has to happen. Songs have to be produced. The book illustrations have to be completed. We're up to chapter 3 now in the illustrations. And once that book can be put together and assembled, and my husband Don Harris is the sound producer and the book designer, which is going to be wonderful to have that happen. Once that book is finished, we already have the audio book recorded, the songs recorded. It can get out in the world in a certain way, and then the films and the script and the plays and all the other, there's tons of lesson plans and activities that my education specialist, Chris Kibbe, is putting together. So you can see it's like a multiple tiered thing. I can see them all coming together within a year at the most.
Wow.
So hopefully less.
Good
but
things
I think
coming to your classroom, teachers.
Yeah.
Good things coming.
So I'm thinking even little pieces can start to be introduced. And of course there's this website that I have that Arena Summer has produced, and it is uprivertomorning.com. And you can find out so much more information about this there.
So I'm on that website right now, and so there's the what's happening about Grandma Aggie and contact information. So is this ready for teachers to use now, or they really need to think in terms of a year from now?
No, they can dive right in right now. They can.
Wow.
They can. The book isn't on there, but there's a lot of other information about it. And as more things are developed, more things will be put up on that site. It's probably updated every month or so.
Great.
To keep current with what's
It's
going on.
a beautiful opening page. And you know,
Yes.
some people like to be involved with something like this.
Yes.
And they may not have the time to do it or the expertise to do it, but they like to help financially. And I see on your website there's a donut. There's no donuts here, folks. There's a donate page.
That's great.
And so clicking on the donate, then that takes you to where you can do that. And I see
Yeah, I'll
PayPal
tell you
and
where we are with the process right now. We're at about 35% of our full funding goal. And donations could be made here on the website through PayPal. They're secure donations. I'm also affiliated with the Multicultural Association of Southern Oregon, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. People can also write a donation to Multicultural Association, earmarked to Upriver To Morning, and you get your tax write-off. And Grandma Aggie gets a percentage of every donation, and that's been working beautifully. So all donations are tax deductible, And we're getting to the end of the calendar year when people start thinking about their tax
Oh,
deductions.
that's true.
So I welcome and appreciate any support that way. It'll be put to a very important cause. The time is now. We need to be more aware of our environment and our culture and our together preserving and protecting our planet Earth.
And you know, I've learned in doing this program with other guests about what the legislature has done in years past, the Senate Bill 13.
Yes.
Which I know that's not your motivation for doing this, but it seems like a really good fit.
It's a very good fit, and it was completely coincidental because I had started this project before. I think Senate Bill 13 was signed in 2017, and I started this project the year before. But how wonderful, and how maybe not a coincidence, maybe it's just more of a confluence, that the time was right and the awareness is now coming out that we can't forget about our indigenous past. There's so much to be gained here. So Senate Bill 13 is to bring indigenous lifeways and their history and also their current, present knowledge and ability to add to our overall culture. It's very timely, and Upriver To Morning totally fits into that.
You know, I think of, you know, one of the purposes of Senate Bill 13 is to change the way that Native American history or culture is presented in schools.
Yes.
At the current time, Native Americans are kind of like secondary actors. You know, we have the Oregon Trail and the pioneers.
Exactly.
And all that's fine, but it doesn't really tell you about the people who lived here, as you said, thousands of years before the pioneers existed.
Yes, exactly. Oregon history seems to start pretty much at white contact forward, and just a little teeny mention, secondary actors is a good way to put it. But there's a rich history and a rich culture here that we all can benefit from. And why not share it, huh?
Yeah, and I know you've consulted with storyteller Thomas Doty.
Yes.
And what I know from his perspective is that there's just so much richness to this culture that he's been able to mine, even with so few people still around from that culture. It's kind of amazing.
The contributions Thomas Doty has made to our knowledge overall of the Native people here is profound. And I also want to encourage people to visit that website, dotycoyote.com, dotycoyote.com, because it is a massive resource for teachers, for people of all ages, and there is so much valuable information there.
And we have that on the screen now. This is Thomas's homepage, and I'll kind of walk people through. When you get to the homepage, this is how I get to the information. Before I knew about your own website, there's what's new, which is this blog, and then if you scroll down, he's very good about keeping his website current, and here we see Upriver To Morning, a revised page.
Yes.
And there we are.
There we are.
So there's several ways to get to this information.
Yes, on Thomas's website, it's dotycoyote.com /UTM for Upriver To Morning, I think it is.
Okay, that would bring you directly there.
Yes.
But if you don't do the / you at least get to his homepage.
Which is worth exploring in depth.
Oh,
like
absolutely. It's a very rich
website. Yeah.
Okay, well, Tish, I want to thank you so much for being here today. And
thank you, John.
Now, let's list again, because I know some teachers watch this program, and I'm sure we've lit a fire here for some people. Okay, so we have the book, right?
Book in progress. Book is written, but book in terms of hard copy in progress still.
Okay, and is that through Blackstone here?
No, I'm doing it myself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay, so self-publishing.
Yes.
Okay, and then we have the audio book.
Yes, which happens to be the voice of Thomas Doty, which we all love it from his storytelling. A lot of teachers have heard Thomas and had him in their classrooms. So yes, we have the audio book. And then there'll be teacher guides and teacher activities.
That's great, because I know as a retired teacher, you don't really have time in your working year to do a whole lot of pulling stuff together. That's great that it's pulled
Oh
together.
yeah, this
for
will be all in one spot, very easy. We're starting with curriculum for 3rd and 4th graders, and Chris Kibbe, the curriculum specialist, is helping me write these activities, and they're tied right into Common Core state standard requirements. So they cover 14 different categories in the Common Core. So I think teachers will find it very helpful and very useful for them.
Well, Tish, thank you so much for coming in and sharing this extremely valuable resource. I'm so excited about this.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching. I want to thank my crew, because this wouldn't happen without all the crew that comes in and volunteers. And I want to thank you, our viewers. Join us next time for Adventures in Education. I'm John Letz.